Tonight, 6 planets will move through the sky in a way that doesn't happen often. Call it a parade if you like. The language feels right. A slow, dignified procession of energies that, when read as metaphor, opens a doorway. This is not just a neat astronomical alignment. Treated as a symbolic lens, it can be one of the most consequential energetic windows you encounter this decade. A moment that makes what is already active inside you louder, clearer, harder to ignore. If you're watching this, chances are you're someone who notices when the inner weather changes. You'll want to hear how to recognize which planet is calling, what to do tonight, and how to meet tomorrow without turning possibility into pressure. Before we go deeper, if you already feel pulled toward any planet, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, or Neptune, drop its name in the comments or write a one-word intention. That simple act anchors attention. Stay with me. Imagine the sky as a theater of symbolic characters. Each planet in this parade offers a distinct voice, an archetypal function that quietly echoes inside your life. Think of these as psychological flavors rather than cosmic commands, useful metaphors you can apply to decisions, moods, and timing. Mercury arrives as the quicksilver speaker, clarity, communication, the sentence you've had on the tip of your tongue. Venus brings the language of desire and connection, what draws you, what feels beautiful, what you might finally let yourself want. Jupiter expands, a horizon shift, a sense of more, a possibility that broadens your map. Saturn is the patient builder, what you can sustain, the contours that hold growth. Uranus is the crack of lightning, breakthrough, sudden reorientation, the taste of a new path. Neptune is the deep water, intuition, dream texture, the subtle inner guidance that asks you to listen differently. Mercury, clarity and precise communication. Under Mercury's call, you may wake with a sentence that finally makes sense, a conversation you no longer need to hem and haw about. It can look like a small, sharp insight, the exact wording of an apology, the one-line pitch for an idea, or a realization that rearranges your mental furniture. Practically, you might find that emails write themselves, or that an old confusion untangles while you're brushing your teeth. It feels like the fog lifting in the head, leaving a clean, usable thought. Venus, desire, value, and closer connection. Venus's voice returns you to taste and attraction. It may surface as a rediscovered longing, a creative itch, a relationship boundary you finally honor, a gentle insistence to surround yourself with things that feel true. In daily life, Venus shows up when you suddenly choose beauty, rearranging a room, saying yes to a date, or setting a boundary because your attention now costs something. It feels warm, tactile, and softening. Jupiter, expansion, vision, and permission to dream bigger. Jupiter hands you permission, often not as an external gift but as a psychological green light to broaden your frame. You might suddenly see a bigger trajectory for your project, or meet someone who gives language to a long-held possibility. In ordinary terms, Jupiter's influence can feel like encountering a map with new roads on it. Options that didn't register before now appear as viable. It carries optimism, but not naive optimism, more of an encouragement to consider a larger horizon. Saturn, structure, long-term holding, and what endures. Saturn's energy is often misread as cold, but in practice it is the force that makes momentum sustainable. Saturn points to capacity, what you can genuinely keep building, who you can genuinely care for, what systems will hold your dreams. When Saturn speaks, it asks a practical question. Can you keep this? It may show up as a test, a boundary that clarifies whether something has real future or is a spark that will fizzle. Its voice is steady and exacting, and its favor often shows up later when the work has been done. Uranus, shock, innovation, and sudden reorientation. Uranus is the unexpected pivot. Its influence can feel electric, a plan that scrambles, a new idea that lands fully formed, a departure that surprises everyone, including you. In small moments, Uranus may be the impulse to hit reply and change the trajectory of a conversation, or the sudden decision to book a one-way ticket. It's liberation energy, often chaotic at first, but catalytic. Neptune, inner sensing, dream intelligence, and the softening of the edges between reality and imagination. Neptune brings depth and nuance. It's less about outer action and more about the lightness of being, dreams that carry meaning, images that repeat in your mind, an increasing sensitivity to subtle guidance. Under Neptune's call, you may notice a string of meaningful coincidences or the sudden clarity of a symbol in a dream that, when followed, proves useful. Here's the short version so you can carry it. Mercury brings clarity, Venus brings desire, Jupiter brings expansion, Saturn locks things in, Uranus forces breakthroughs, Neptune opens inner knowing. One of these voices is likelier to match your wavelength tomorrow. One planet will, as people like to say, call your name. How do you tell which one it is? Start with what occupies your attention. Which theme has been repeating in your life for weeks or months? If you've been rewriting sentences in your head and can't stop editing a message, Mercury is more likely to be speaking. If you're thinking about who or what you want to be near, or why small pleasures suddenly feel essential, Venus may be tugging. If your imagination keeps finding bigger frames, if questions about purpose or scale recur, Jupiterian energy may be active. If you're being pressed by reality, by responsibilities, logistics, the question of what you can sustain, listen for Saturn. If the pattern involves sudden restlessness or an itch for freedom, Uranus could be at work. If imagery, dreams, or an unexplainable sensitivity are dominating, Neptune might be the voice. But it's not just theme. Timing matters. Notice when the cues come. For many people, the alignment lands in day parts that function archetypically. Morning realizers often wake with clarity, short, crystalline insights that align best with Mercury and sometimes Jupiter. Afternoon activators are the people chosen by practical momentum. This is when Venus and Saturn often make themselves known. Work flows, relationships clarify, choices get made in real time. Late-night shifters find themselves changed in silence. Uranus and Neptune frequently whisper in the dark, through dreams or sudden private decisions. Imagine 3 short scenes. First, you wake at dawn, and by your second cup of coffee, you have the exact phrase you need to send to someone who's been confusing you for months. It lands like a mental sunrise. The right words are bright and undeniable. That's a morning realizer moment, a Mercury hue. Second, during a slow afternoon, you rearrange your workspace, say no to an obligation you don't want, and in doing so make room for a steady project. Saturn slipping in to help structure desire into habit. Third, you can't sleep. At 2 a.m., a vivid symbol repeats, a broken bridge, a key, a childhood room, and in the morning you realize that these images were pointers toward a decision you'd been avoiding. That's a late-night shifter, Neptune or Uranus at play. How to know in real time which planet is resonating. Pay attention to felt sense over rhetoric. When an archetype is calling you, it tends to show up as a bodily cue, a tightening around the throat when you're asked to speak, Mercury, a lightness in the chest when you imagine a new connection, Venus, an enlarging in the torso when you glimpse a bigger possibility, Jupiter, a grounded heaviness when decisions ask to be kept, Saturn, a buzz behind the eyes when an idea arrives like lightning, Uranus, or a softening around the heart and belly that comes with dream-tide insights, Neptune. Recurring images, symbols or motifs that keep returning in waking life or dreams also indicate resonance. Timing and the type of impulse, sudden versus patient, external versus interior, will help you name the voice. This planetary parade is unusual for the decade because multiple voices are lined up to amplify what they touch. Amplification is the right metaphor. The alignment functions as a magnifier, not a blueprint. It tends to increase the volume of what's already playing. If you've been barely aware of a creative longing, the parade may make that need feel louder and more urgent. If you're already practicing a discipline, Saturn's presence may make the benefits compound. The important caveat is this: amplified does not equal predetermined. Your agency remains central, the alignment highlights, it doesn't engineer. The night before matters, but not because of elaborate rituals. Your single most useful action tonight is to pick one intention and mentally acknowledge it. Don't make a to-do list that reads like a fortune cookie. Sit quietly for a minute and identify the one persistent intention that's been arising, one sentence, one compass point. It could be as modest as, "I will state my truth clearly," or as expansive as, "I will explore this idea with curiosity," or as soft as, "I will notice what feels nourishing." Hold that intention in your mind for a few breaths. Visualize it as a candle or a small compass needle turning toward north. That's it. No props, no elaborate ceremony. Intention matters because the alignment works like a magnifying glass. What you put under it gains notice. One clear compass point is more effective than a laundry list of aims. When morning comes, honor the timing pattern you tend to prefer. If you're a morning realizer, give yourself a window of clarity. No doom scrolling, no immediate obligations. Let your first impulses be heard. If you're an afternoon activator, plan for a midday period where you can act on clarity. Schedule that phone call, send that message, move physically toward what's needed. If you're a late-night shifter, don't dismiss nocturnal insights. Record them, sketch them, and allow them to breathe before you take impulsive action. Remember, a good rule is to notice before you commit. Clarity often arrives as a felt sense first. Give it a small period of discernment before making irreversible moves. There's one planetary duet to watch especially closely: Mercury paired with Uranus. Symbolically, Mercury is the voice, Uranus the shock. When these two tones overlap, fog tends to clear suddenly. You may find a decision that felt impossible becomes obvious overnight. Breakthroughs under this pairing are not necessarily new creations. They're often the revelation of what was already true. Think of it as the lights turning on in a room you'd been fumbling in. The suddenness can be disorienting, so temper it with a breath. When the idea lands, ask 3 quick grounding questions. Is this consistent with my long-term values? What small first step honors this clarity? Who will be affected by this decision? Use Mercury's clarity and Uranus's lightning together by translating the flash into a practical first action, however small. Saturn's role in this parade is what gives the whole thing a decade-level relevance. Saturn doesn't spark fireworks, it creates the scaffolding that holds them. This influence helps turn interesting moments into durable paths. Over the course of a decade, Saturn's signatures tend to appear as tests and confirmations, responsibilities assumed, systems built, boundaries set and maintained. When you experience a Saturnian nudge during this parade, understand it as a question of capacity. Can you sustain this idea? Can you hold this relationship? Can you build the habit that will make a dream become real? Saturn asks you to answer not just with enthusiasm, but with reliable practice. That's why this parade can be significant for the decade. The immediate insights and desires it amplifies, if met with Saturn-style holding, may seed trajectories that play out across years. This is not a promise of inevitable success. It's an opportunity to plant and tend, rather than lighting a spark and walking away. A practical way to work with Saturn tonight is to pair your single intention with one structural question. What is one small thing I can do tomorrow that I could repeat weekly or monthly to support this intention? It might be a 10-minute writing slot, a short check-in call, a standing boundary around your calendar. Choose something modest. Saturn rewards consistency over grand gestures. As you move through the day, watch for pitfalls. The first is expecting the parade to replay your past patterns. The alignment may amplify old habits or wounds. Do not assume repetition is fate. Instead, treat recurrence as information. Where you get triggered is where healing or realignment is likely to be needed. Second, resist turning the moment into a checklist or a performance. The energetic doorway is not about scoring points. It's about perception and response. Third, avoid waiting for a perfect sign before acting. The alignment may deliver clarity, but action, small, repeated, patient action, turns clarity into momentum. There's another trap to avoid, equating intensity with correctness. Sometimes the energy will feel dramatic, palms sweating, stomach flipping, thoughts racing, and that intensity can be mistaken for a green light. Use the Saturn question as a filtering tool. Does this intense impulse align with a capacity you're willing to build? If the answer is no, consider whether you're responding to the thrill of novelty rather than to something sustainable. Remember that not everyone will feel this parade strongly. That's normal. Some people will notice nothing, and that's fine. For those who do feel it, the experience can range from whisper to gale. Both ends are valid. If you feel little, you're not missing a required event. If you feel a lot, you're given more material to work with. In both cases, the central practice is the same. Be attentive without turning attention into anxiety. Let me invite you into a short mental rehearsal for tonight. Sit quietly for a minute, breathe naturally, and summon the one intention that feels inevitable. Give it one clear sentence. Visualize this sentence as a small arrow pointing forward. Now ask, what is one repeatable action that supports that arrow? Make it remarkably small. The point of the exercise is not to produce a plan that scares you, but to give your inner system a clear orientation. The alignment doesn't need elaborate fuel, it needs a direction. As for what to expect in the immediate aftermath, you may experience heightened intuition, more vivid dreams, clearer speech, or a thicker sensitivity to others' moods. You might notice patterns that you've been ignoring. You may find decisions that felt heavy become manageable. You may also find yourself more sensitive to social dynamics or environmental stimuli. Reduce overstimulation where you can and give yourself permission to rest. A few practical examples to bring this home. Imagine you're an artist who's been stuck on the same series. Under Jupiter's influence, you suddenly see the series as part of a larger body of work, an album rather than a single track. That sense of scope helps you reframe deadlines, seek collaborators, and adjust pricing so your work can reach further. Or imagine you're in a job that's been neutrally tolerable. Venus may make you acutely aware that your daily environment lacks beauty and care. That awareness could lead to small changes, new plants, a morning walk, that incrementally shift your well-being. Or picture a parent whose schedule is overloaded. Saturn's presence may highlight what can realistically be sustained and invite a restructuring of commitments that, over years, yields more manageable, meaningful rhythms. If Mercury and Uranus flash a clarity that feels like a revelation, do yourself a favor and translate it into a micro-step before you broadcast it widely. Test the idea privately. Let it grow in small, accountable ways. If Saturn asks for holding, don't mistake delay for denial. Holding often looks like disciplined, unromantic work. In both cases, keep your internal posture curious and kind. The parade magnifies, your response shapes the outcome. As the day unfolds, practice a small litmus test before making a big move. Will this choice, taken calmly, still align with my intention in 6 months? This isn't a rigid predictor, life is messy, but it helps you filter impulsive moves from those that contribute to durable momentum. If you can answer yes, the choice likely fits a Saturn-friendly trajectory. If you find the question difficult to answer, invite more time or more data. Near the close of this message, pause and remember the most important point. This planetary parade is an energetic amplifier, not an absolute dictator of fate. It makes what's already inside you louder. That is its power and its gift. It's also why your responsibility matters more than ever. Amplified tendencies need discernment. Approach tomorrow with quiet confidence. Expect movement, not perfection. Allow small shifts to accumulate. If you experience breakthrough, temper it with practical steps. If you feel only a whisper, honor that whisper in consistent, small actions. Before we finish, one last encouragement. When larger trends line up with your inner readiness, momentum can begin to feel inevitable. Over a decade, small, consistent decisions compound. This parade can make a few of those early decisions easier to see. Use the alignment to notice and orient. Pair revelation with structure, and keep holding toward a direction you can sustain. If any part of this landed with you, if a planet's name felt like a small tug, comment below with which planet you feel drawn to, or with the one-word intention you chose for tonight. I'll be looking and we'll learn from what unfolds together. Save this video so you can return after the event, subscribe if you want follow-up reflections and readings, and share with someone who might appreciate a gentle, practical frame for what's happening. When the planets line up, life often begins to line up with you, quietly, gradually, and in time. Meet it with openness and steady feet.